Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining this presentation. My name is Peter Han, Senior Technical Program Manager in NetApp IT, and David Tanigawa, who is the tech lead, will join this presentation for to present the technical considerations. For today's agenda, the NetApp IT has been running the FAST program, which is to upgrade and maintain the hardware platform and storage software upgrades. And we want to share our experience and also our current status with the European TPM teams. And Dave is covered the technical considerations of this program. And then I'm going to cover the NetApp Lifecycle Management Dashboard and challenges and lessons learned. For the overview of the corporate NetApp IT, that we currently running 100 petabyte storage with 450 storage controllers and 5,000 servers, and supporting the 375 enterprise applications. And we are, as of today, we have the 124 and the SaaS applications running on our environment. FAST program is the well-established program and the well-defined processes in upgrading and maintaining the hardware and OS level of NetApp storage solutions. As for the major goal of this program, that make sure that in operation environment has a consistency and stable environment, and also maintain the structured upgrade cycle, and also by implementing the new products and the new code, then apply the new feature and bug fixes in our operation environment. And this program covers the NetApp products, has 10 tracks. That one of the major stream is that the ONTAP 9 track, and also it covers the other technology products, including the cluster switches, storage grid, and HCI, and E3 systems and more. Then by running this program, the NetApp IT can improve the performance improvements, and also running the up-to-date storage software and hardware environment, and also create the showcase as for the enterprise level NetApp product showcase to the customers. And benefit to the NetApp product development engineering, that as we are the customer one, early adopter of the NetApp products, that product development team and engineering team, they can validate the product readiness before they ship to the customers, and also learn their products with the variable load with the live data sets from the NetApp IT, and also discover the new bugs and issues, and also it enables the work together with IT and engineering teams for the early resolution and easier triage and bug fixes from the program. There are two software releases in the NetApp for the RC release candidate and the GA for the general availability. So FAST program is the process used by the customer one for upgrading and maintenance OS level of the NetApp storage solutions within large corporate storage environment. So in terms of the deployment process, that deploy the RC and GA in the IT lab first for feature testing, then do the TOIs, then moving to the approved release cycle to the deploying to the other environment. So step one is the for lab environment, then wait for a week to check if check the stability of the new code, then moving to the backup, because a backup has the SnapMeter source and destination relationships requirements. So we upgrade the entire backup before we move into the subprod. Then once that we upgrade all the backups and wait for a week, then moving to the subprod migration. So the subprod environment is include the DAP test staging environment. That the policy, upgrade policy is that after we upgrade the entire not the entire, it's a subprod environment for at least 4 clusters before moving to the production. So once we upgrade the subprod clusters and learn for the 2 weeks, then moving to production environment. So as in the production is a critical application environment, we only deploy the GA to the production environment. Once the new code has been released and complete the lab upgrade and baking in period, then we are moving to the corporate migration environment, corporate upgrade environment. So this is deployment flow for the corporate environment. That once that supported RC and GA release, then go to the IT release process. For the major releases, like 8.0 to the 9.0 grade, then we usually take the IT certification process, have all of the applications and the database, and also in the server environment certified through this new version. Then once that certification is completed, then go to the IT release process. So as for the first upgrade, the entire backup should be upgraded and monitor for 1 week, then moving to subprod for 15 days, and around 2 weeks for the once we upgrade the subprods, and the requirements that we have to upgrade at least 4 clusters in the subprod in order to move into the prod. Then once the subprod migration and baking period is completed, and we start to upgrade the major prod clusters to the new version. At the early stage of this program, that is very difficult to get the approvals from the application owners for the storage upgrade, because at the beginning of the program, that it caused some of the major outages to the applications, because that as a file upgrade requires take over and give back during the upgrade, but as the infrastructure standard was not fully implemented, that some servers, critical servers, has a single pass and cause the outages. And also that if there is some issues during the upgrade, then sometimes it impacts the major application releases because of the poor communication. And also there is no collaborative planning with application teams for the storage upgrade. So in order to mitigate these risks, that program team implement the collaborative planning with the corporate application owners, and also do the proactive user communications, and also implement the accurate upgrade pre-checks in order to avoid any issues, technical issues during the upgrade. And also staggered installations or approaches that are implemented, because at the time of the upgrade, if after the one pair of the storage node upgrade is completed, we usually perform the active application and database validations, then moving to the next upgrade after the monitoring the stability of those pair. And also the new process in the NetApp ONTAP is very helpful and reduce those risks, because automatic non-disruptive upgrade was the process to avoid any manual errors during the upgrade. and also the body checklist during the upgrade was helpful, and active post validations after the upgrade for the critical application was implemented as a standard process for this file upgrade process. This is the standard fast upgrade schedule of ONTAP 9. That usually it is the 4-week schedule, that week -3 that complete upgrade pre-checks to see if there is any technical issues for the upgrade, and if there is a severity 1 issue which would prevent the upgrades, then start to work for the resolution actions for these severity 1 issues. Then week -2, then application leaders and owners meeting, program team explain that what is the benefit of this upgrade and also schedule. Then application team explain their release schedule, to avoid any conflict between their releases and with our the storage upgrade. If application always wins, if there is the major application schedule release schedule scheduled during the upgrade window, then we change our schedule, and then we first send out the first user notification and ask for the feedback for the all of the application teams hosted in the storage system. Then receive the week -1, the receive application teams feedback, and also understand any pre-check items remaining. Then make a project team make a decision for no and go no go decision for the upgrades. Then week 0, and we send out the user notification, then perform the upgrade. Then for the tier 1 applications, we do the active post-application validation right after the storage upgrade. Those tier 1 application teams join our upgrade call, then perform the upgrade validation right after the upgrade for the node. Then day +1, then send out the final user notification about the status of the storage upgrades, and also if there is any follow-up issues from the application teams, we take actions for that. So that is the overall of the FAST program and the processes. So if you have any questions, let us know.
All right, thank you. That's the first part of the webinar today. Are there any questions at this time related to the process that's been put in place? As Peter has told you, it used to be a mess, and then Peter came in and basically created a really established program with established processes, and that has really helped accelerate our upgrade processes and lifecycle management. Questions? No questions in the chat other than I see Hans has asked, why are you guys doing multiple Zooms at the same time? That's just an internal coordination problem, but a reminder to everyone, we do record these sessions and we make them available. So if you miss one, you can, if you chose to come to this one, you missed the other one, please go listen to it, and vice versa. So if there are no questions, then I think we'll continue on to the second part here.
Hello, everyone. My name is David Tanagawa. I'm a senior storage engineer with the Customer One Solutions Group within NetApp IT. Today, I'm going to discuss some technical considerations which go into planning and preparing for an ONTAP upgrade. On the first slide, we have an overview of our pre-upgrade checks. Our fast upgrade process has evolved over time as we've refined the process through our continuous improvement efforts. Over the course of the past several years, we've gained a more thorough understanding of the dependencies and considerations which go into preparing for an upgrade. Last year, we undertook a large effort to upgrade from ONTAP 9.1 to 9.6. And that effort really included the full gamut of considerations. So as we begin our pre-upgrade checks, we take a look at Upgrade Advisor, Active IQ, Config Advisor, specifically for health issues or risks in our environment which we need to address before beginning an upgrade. We also take a look at our hardware. We want to make sure that our hardware is supported with our target ONTAP release. Any hardware failures or issues in our environment, we want to make sure those get addressed before we start our upgrade as well. We also look at the external tools and utilities that we use to help manage our storage environment, specifically software which runs outside of the cluster. We want to make sure those tools and utilities are also supported with our target ONTAP release. In the case of our SAN hosts, we want to make sure those are multi-pathed so that when we do takeovers and givebacks as part of our upgrade process, we want to be able to ensure that those SAN hosts continue to have uninterrupted access to their LUNs. In cases where we're using SnapMirror, we want to make sure that we're running compatible ONTAP versions on the clusters with our source and destination volumes. Our cluster switches, NXOS versions, RCF versions, we need all of that to also be supported by our target ONTAP version. We also review system, shelf, and disk firmware. It's a good idea to review the ONTAP 9 release notes to understand the changes that are being introduced with the ONTAP version you're planning to upgrade to. On the next slide, we talk about data protection relationships, or SnapMirror DP relationships. These are as they always have been, in that clusters with SnapMirror destination volumes need to be running a version of ONTAP, which is greater than or equal to the ONTAP version running on clusters with SnapMirror source volumes. And on the next slide, we talk about SnapMirror XDP relationships, now known as unified replication relationships. As you can see in this table, there is more interoperability between ONTAP versions with XDP. However, there are some exceptions to that. So it's helpful to refer to this table in planning for your upgrade. Included on the slide is a link to the data protection guide, which contains both of these tables and some additional information. The next slide addresses some additional considerations for SnapMirror. For ONTAP 9.3, XDP replaced DP as the default SnapMirror type. It's important to be aware that when you upgrade to 9.3 or later versions, any pre-existing DP relationships aren't automatically converted to XDP. Those relationships are still DP relationships. They continue to function as they always have. However, there are three reasons why we may want to consider converting those relationships to XDP. The first reason, as we discussed in the previous slide, is the improved interoperability with different ONTAP versions for XDP relationships. Another reason why we might want to convert those relationships is BERT 11666096, which describes a condition in which Clusters with SnapMirror DP destination volumes might panic or experience an unplanned takeover. That risk is effectively worked around, converting those relationships from DP to FTP. And a third reason to consider converting those relationships is the storage efficiency limitations that are associated with DP relationships. With DP relationships, my source volume and my destination volume need to be configured with identical storage efficiency configurations. So that limitation is also effectively eliminated by converting those relationships to XDP. On this slide, I provided a link to a helpful article which explains how to convert DP relationships to XDP. The important thing to be aware of when going through that process is to make sure that the source and destination volumes have a common snapshot. So that way, when we break off the existing DP relationship and we create a new XDP relationship in its place, we can simply resync the relationship instead of having to rebaseline it. On the next slide, we talk about the end of support FAS platforms. There are several product families, several FAS platforms, which are no longer supported as of ONTAP 9.2. In our case, last year, as we were preparing to upgrade from 9.1 to 9.6, we had several filers belonging to these product families that we needed to evacuate. And so we developed a systematic approach to our node evacuation process, which is explained on the next slide. So our node evacuation effort begins with cleanup. We want to start by identifying any orphaned cluster configurations or other storage resources which are no longer in use. Anything that's inactive, anything that's been orphaned. It'll simplify our migration process. So we clean those up. One big consideration that's a part of that are unused volumes. So we take a look at a 0 IOPS report. What we found in our environment is that volumes with 0 IOPS over a period of 90 or more days can be safely considered inactive, and we can start the decommission process on those volumes. In our environment, we also enable volume recovery queue with 360 volume delete retention hours. This gives us the opportunity to recover previously deleted volumes for 360 hours or 15 days following the volume deletion. If there ends up being no reason to recover the volume, then the volume is permanently and automatically deleted from the cluster. Once our cleanup effort is complete, then we start migrating NAS data volumes. These are really the low-hanging fruit of our data volume migrations. These are simple to accomplish, and we can make a nice dent in our migration process by knocking these out. So we start with those. Once our NAS data volumes have been migrated, then we continue on with our SAN volumes. With the SAN volumes, there are a few different considerations. In our environment, we have several hosts with boot runs, which required downtime to update the storage path in the BIOS on those hosts in order to update the configuration to point to the new LUN location on the new HA pair. For data LUNs, we can migrate one path at a time by taking the lift down on the old node, bringing it up on a port on the new node, making sure that our host has access through the new path, and then repeating the process with the redundant path. Selective LUN mapping enables us to restrict LUN access to the HA pair, which hosts the LUN. So as we're preparing to migrate a SAN volume from the current HA pair to a new HA pair, we want to update the LUN mapping configuration to include the destination HA pair as well as the source HA pair. After we migrate the volume, we can then remove the source HA pair from that mapping configuration. In cases where we had fiber channel LUNs, we also needed to update the zoning configuration to make sure those hosts have access to their LUNs through the new HA pair. Other considerations related to the node evacuation process include things like migrating SVM root volumes, recreating LS mirror volumes, rehoming NAS data lifts, and rehoming SVM management lifts. On the next slide, we have a matrix which shows the supported Cisco switches, NXOS versions, RCF versions for various versions of ONTAP. At the bottom of this slide is a link to the page which contains this matrix. And at the end of the slide deck, I have links to the pages where we can download the NXOS software and RCF configuration files also. And we want to make sure all of those components are supported with our target ONTAP release. On the next slide, we start to discuss our storage management software. So again, this is the software, the tools and utilities that we run outside of the cluster to help manage our storage environment. In our environment with ONTAP 9.1, we were extensively using SnapDrive for Windows and SnapManager for SQL Server. As you can see from this screenshot from the interoperability matrix tool, SnapDrive for Windows is no longer supported after ONTAP 9.3. And on the next slide, we can see that SnapManager for SQL Server requires SnapDrive for Windows. So in planning for our upgrade to ONTAP 9.6, we needed to replace this solution to back up our SnapManager, our SQL Server data. So what we ended up doing was replacing those products with SnapCenter, which is depicted on the next slide. SnapCenter provides application-consistent data protection for ONTAP-hosted data anywhere in the hybrid cloud. The architecture consists of a centralized SnapCenter server, and then a plugin is installed on each of the hosts that we want to back up. In our environment, because we're using this product to replace SnapDrive and SnapManager for SQL Server, we're primarily using this to back up our SQL Server data. However, the solution also provides plugins for other types of data, including Exchange Server, Windows, Oracle, SAP HANA, VMware vSphere, and there's also a custom plugin which can be configured to back up other application data types. So in summary, as we prepare to upgrade ONTAP, there are several considerations which are part of the process. We want to make sure our hardware is supported with our target ONTAP release, that any hardware failures or issues have been addressed and resolved. In cases where we have SnapMirror configured, we want to make sure that we're running compatible ONTAP versions for source and destination clusters. We want to make sure cluster switches and XOS versions and RCF versions are supported with our target ONTAP release. We want to review our monitoring tools to make sure we identify and address any health issues or risks in our environment. In cases where we are migrating 7-mode data, we want to make sure that our target ONTAP versions support TDP SnapMirror. And then for any external off-box storage management software that we may be using, we want to make sure that is also compatible with our target ONTAP release. On the next page, I have links to some other resources which may be helpful to you in planning for your ONTAP upgrades, including the interoperability matrix tool, the end of availability report, a couple firmware pages, firmware download pages, and some software download pages. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions you may have.
All right, great. There is one question that came in from Anthony. The question is, are there going to be any NetApp-based cluster switches in future? Because the BES series and Nexus switches increase lead times for all orders in Africa. Elias, is that a question for you?
No.
Okay, let's kick him out of the game here.
Can you forward the question to me and I'll reply direct to them?
Okay, let me put it into the window for everyone can see it. Came in from Anthony.
Hey, Mary Jo, that's really a question for the product team, the product engineering
Okay.
team.
So, yes, you can. Yes. So Anthony, so the direct question is, if you would chat me your email address, I'll ask the product team and come back to you on that, an answer. And there's another question is, can you have a copy of this presentation after the class? Absolutely. Elias will be sending it out. And we will include in that presentation at the bottom a transcript of this, so you can, if you want to go back and read through what was said, you can do that. We'll also have a recording available. Okay, with that said, are there any other questions on what David just talked to? Feel free to ask any questions. You're a quiet group today. Okay, let's we'll go ahead and start then with the last section. Then we're going to go back to Peter. Peter's going to talk through some of the challenges that we've discovered with the ONTAP upgrades, as well as some of the lessons learned.
The most recent challenges in this program, I heard that many of European customers are facing same challenges, that ONTAP 9.1 upgrade to the 9.6. Because a 9.1 upgrade to 9.6, it requires the end of support nodes should be removed from the cluster. That means all of the data on the end of support node should be migrated to the supported node. And especially for the this data migration, that boot runs migration as it requires the downtime, that project team should be closely work with application teams to take the downtime. And the other challenge on this was the SnapManager migration, because for the SQL backups using the SnapManager, as a SnapManager is supported up to the 9.3, so all of the SnapManager backups should be migrated to the SnapCenter. We migrated these SnapManager servers, around 100 servers, to the SnapCenter. So we ran 2 projects to drive these requirements, and we were very successfully completed all those projects. And now all of the clusters are ready to already migrated or they're ready to migrate to the 9.6. If you look at the next page, that shows our current status of the ONTAP. So our entire ONTAP storage fleet supports the entire corporate application portfolio. That we have the 39 ONTAP 9 clusters with 172 cluster nodes. If you look at the May last year, that we have 46% of the clusters are running on 9.1 and 37% of the clusters are running 9.5 or 9.6. After 12 months, that we have 9.1 clusters with 21% and 9.6 and 9.5 and 9.7 as 72% as of last month. So out of those 9.1 clusters, all data migration and SnapCenter migration is completed. So those are ready to the 9.7 upgrades as we are currently running 9.7 upgrade cycle. So our current target is that by the end of July, that we're gonna have all of our entire ONTAP fleet running with 9.7. So if we look at the next slide, then we have learned from this program is that in order to be successful and also no impact and to the applications during this ONTAP upgrade, that infrastructure standards should be implemented and also accurate upgrade pre-check is critical for successful upgrades. And for the data migrations, for like 7-mode migrations or for the node evacuations to remove the end of a support node is very important. So work closely with the users, application teams and infrastructure teams, and also maintain the trust from the users by the project team is also very critical. And as we are migrating thousands of volumes and more than 100 applications in this data migration process, so it is very important to have a very organized approaches and efficient process. And for some applications with the Tier 1 applications and highly impacted to the business, it is very difficult to have the downtime and also application downtime impact directly to their business. So we developed Ansible automation playbook in order to reduce downtime during the cutover. Then it was very successful. So by lessons learned from this program, we continue to improve our process in order to maintain our robust the storage fleet and the data infrastructure.
All right. So that wraps up the presentation part of it and the last piece of the presentation part. Are there any questions for either Peter or David or anyone else on the call today? All right, quiet group. All right, so
I have a question. My name is Dan Humisa from Atos. I'm calling. I didn't see anything about metro clusters there. Did you have any metro clusters in the environment that you have migrated or not? Because I didn't see anything about fiber bridges being updated and the way to do it.
Eduardo, you want to take that?
Sure. So we, to be honest, we actually have very little metro cluster in the environment. The process that we described for upgrading ONTAP and everything else, it's the same for metro cluster. For the fire bridges and stuff, it's sort of separate, right? It's not part of the same ONTAP upgrade, obviously, right? Because you're upgrading different switches, but it's not. There's no, I'll say, no long list of requirements or anything like that. We just to make sure that the version of the switch is matching the version, in the IMT, and then you do one at a time and you upgrade it. But to be frank, we only have one metro cluster solution right now, and it's an aging one, sort of an old one that we're migrating out of.
Okay. Yeah, I know that there are some issues when upgrading the Fiber Bridge firmware, or there were at least at 9.5, and I wanted to know if you experienced any.
And we haven't. So it is actually running. Our metro cluster solution today, even though it's old, is running 9.7, I believe, already. We didn't have any issues that I can speak of, to be honest with you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Be sure if you have a question, you want to unmute yourself or throw it up in the chat window.
Also, it's Elias here. Regarding that metro cluster question, if you want to forward your question to me, I know that in Germany, for example, we have a lot of metro clusters, so I'm sure I'll be able to find a colleague to help out in answering any of your queries.
Oh, this is Peter Han. I didn't know that I was mute. So yeah, no, as Edward mentioned that we are currently running the metro cluster on the 9.7.
Okay, I understand.
All right, this is Mary Jo LeBlanc. I don't know that I actually did a proper introduction at the beginning. I am part of the NetApp on NetApp program under NetApp IT, and the gentlemen that you heard from this morning are from our sister program, which we call Customer One. They're the early adopters, as Peter alluded to. And Eduardo leads the storage team under the Customer One program. But I want to leave you with a couple of things here today before we close up. One is to have you go check out netappit.com. And it is a site where we put up all of our use cases. Oh, there's one last question. We'll come back to that. We put up all of our use cases around our use of NetApp products inside of IT. In particular, I want to point you out to the webinars page where you can find the recordings. And here's what it looks like. It's basically these up here are the 2020, the ones that we've done in the calendar year 2020. This was the one we did last month on the Veeam backup for HDI. This is the one that we're talking about today. Next month, we're planning to do one on using Ansible automation for storage, just a bunch of different topics. We did an initial webinar on this for day zero configs and provisioning about a year and a half ago, but now this next series will be on what's new, what are the other use cases we're using Ansible for. And then down at the bottom here, you'll see all of the ones that we did starting in last year in 2019. We started this program about in January of last year. So there's numerous recordings out there that you can take a look at. And I believe up here, these do have the ones for 2020. We're putting out a file gallery where you can see the presentation size, but we also we give that presentation to Elias at the end of each of these series, so he can send that out. So I'm just going to plug our program there a little bit and where you can find other information. And just go to the home page, and at the home page you'll see basically this is the newest content comes in first into the queue. And then down here we have our blogs that the SMEs write. We try to do 2 blogs a month. We have some infographics there, the graphical kind of summaries. We talked about the webinars, some podcasts, and ebooks. And then down here at the bottom we have what I call the use case in a slide. And it's an interactive menu. You can click through it. It's basically a one slide. Some of these, like our multi-cloud strategy, you will see has several slides associated with it. Then we have our Cloud One platform, which is really our evolution of our hybrid cloud model. We started out focused on DevOps, what that looks like. Then we have a program called Cobra, which represents the business resilient apps that are running on Cloud One, or those monolithic apps that we're converting into microservices running on containers. So And so anyway, it's out here. There's other stuff here. Please check it out. If you have any questions, if you're a partner, contact your TPM or your other NetApp representative. If you're a TPM, reach out to our program, and we can, if there's a particular subject you're looking for, we're happy to try to address it. So let's go back and answer a few of these last minute questions that were coming in. It looks like this might be for David or Peter. Maybe interesting to know why keep DP SnapMirror relationships in place of XDP conversion. So is there any reason why we keep that?
David?
So, so as I mentioned before, DP relationships, if you had those before upgrading to ONTAP 9.3, they continue to be DP relationships. I provided 3 reasons for actually converting those to XDP. XDP is really the favorable SnapMirror type going forward. I think there's a plan eventually to phase out DP, and so XDP is really the way to go. So we would encourage. I think it's recommended for several reasons to convert those to XDP.
Does that help?
Yes, yeah, but as far as I know, DP relationship has better performance than XDP. That's why I was wondering if is that still the case, or if definitely we should advise to migrate to XDP. That's because DP is block based as far as I know, and XDP is logical based, and so maybe I think that there will be some penalties. That's why that's the reason I asked.
Okay. So keep in mind, everyone on this call, we're not the product team. We're the users. So sometimes, frankly, we shake our heads as well, like, oh, I don't understand that. Why? Okay, we have one more question. I've recently read a document about your solution to integrate OCM with ServiceNow using Splunk and Xenos for monitoring. Any chance we could have a discussion with the team that implemented? Sure, we could check it out, try to find out. I know we have a team within the IT team that does our monitoring. They use Splunk, they use Xenos, they use ServiceNow. I don't know off top of my head if they use OCM. I think they do. But we can also look into the product team. Maybe there's somebody on the product side that could do a joint presentation.
So Mary Jo, that conversation there is about integrating OCM with Xenos for alerts to ServiceNow. That's something that our team did. Victor actually worked on that with Chris Freeman.
Okay.
So we can maybe tee that up for a future discussion.
Okay, I'll make a note of that.
Yeah.
Excellent. All right. So we will again be back. This is a monthly webinar series. We work with Elias to get this brought to you, where we are trying to expand our reach into other partner communities, not just as we started out sort of on the UK and Ireland side. It's now growing more into Europe. We're expanding it into the Americas region, the regions in America as well. So please keep all those questions coming, and please check back and join us again next month. Elise, do you have any final comments for everybody as we close off today?
Yeah, no, just if you have any more questions, you can always, if you've got my email address, the invitation, just send them to me and I'll try and reply as much as I can. There's some really good questions today. It's nice to see, and hopefully we'll see you next month.
All right. Thanks, everyone, and have a great day. And stay healthy.